gives me more pride within myself. Isn't it beautiful?
What are you?
I'm black and beautiful.
On today's episode, we're going to be talking about Emmett Till. Viewer discretion is advised. Also, what sparked this episode will be shown in the following clip.
Emmett Till was falsely accused of something and was killed because he was falsely accused. But like, I love to know more about Emmett Till because I don't really know much, but I know some things about Emmett Till. So,
Alright, so here goes some context. During the period of Reconstruction, the foundation socially and politically of Jim Crow formed. Jim Crow was a system with a combination of legal laws meant to oppress African Americans politically and terrorize them to suppress them socially. Jim Crow was essentially developed after Plessy versus Ferguson, separate but equal. Jim Crow propelled segregation in motion and minstrel shows. Jim Crow also propelled the degradation of the black community through stereotypes. Emmett Till was born July 25, 1941 to Mamie and Louis Till. He grew up in a working-class neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. His father died in service during World War II. At the age of 5, he overcame polio, which left him with a speech impediment. Born in Money, Mississippi. During the 1950s, Mississippi was one of the most brutal and racist states towards African Americans. It embodied Jim Crow through and through. Due to the stereotypes and Jim Crow, most whites believed that black men were always preying on white women, and black men were to have no interaction with white women unless they wanted to face death or brutal attack. On August 20th, Mamie Till sent Emmett to Mississippi for 1 week to visit her Uncle Mose and his family. Emmett arrived and immersed himself in the daily life of his Southern family, despite his lack of knowledge of the Jim Crow ways of Mississippi. He was only 14. What happened? Emmett and a host of his cousins and friends went to the Bryant store located in Money, Mississippi. It is said that Emmett went in along with a cousin to make a purchase. Witnesses say that he began to flirt with the clerk, Carolyn Bryant, who is also the wife of the owner. It is said he did this because of a dare between his cousins and friends. As he left the store, witnesses say he whistled at her and then said, "Bye, baby." At the time of the incident, Roy Bryant was out of town conducting business, and upon his return, he was confronted with the incident between his wife and Emmett by others, who simply described Emmett as a boy from Chicago. Roy grew enraged, and with the help of his brother J.W. Millam, went to the Mose house to confront Emmett to come with them. In the trial, Carolyn would claim that he grabbed her and made lewd comments towards her. Concerning what really happened within the store, there are many different stories. Some that indicate that Emmett didn't flirt with her, that he whistled to ease the problem with his speech impediment, which caused him to stutter. August 28, 1955, Roy and J.W. kidnapped Emmett from his uncle's house and drove him to a barn where they beat and killed him, later mutilating his body. He was then taken to a river where they tied a fan to his neck and threw his body in the river. 3 days later, he was discovered, his body bloated and unrecognizable, that he could only be identified by the ring he wore by his Uncle Mose. Here's an account of his abduction as told to his mother by those who were there.
Those men came to the house. They did not knock on the door and said, "Preacher Mose, we want to see somebody." No. They banged on the door and told him to open up. And they were very noisy. They were very mean. They were very hostile. And they had their flashlights. They had a shotgun. And they also had these big 45s. I mean, they were well armed. And when they got inside the house, they went from room to room. Now, we don't know how they knew where to go looking for anybody. Somebody had to tell them that there were some Chicago boys staying with Preacher Mose. We don't know yet who gave that information. But when they got to the room where my son and Moses Wright's baby son, where they were sleeping, they would ask every boy as they encountered them, "Oh, are you the one that went in the store?" Something like that. And Emmett acknowledged that he had been in the store. But he said yes, and oh, that's when the violence really erupted, because he had the nerve to just give a plain yes. And they gave him a lesson in Southern English. You say yes, sir, and no, sir, and or either, I mean, you put a handle on their name. You didn't, on your answers, you didn't just give a yes or a no. And they began to swear, and they cursed at him, and they told him to get his clothes on. And Emmett began by putting his socks on, and they wanted to know, "What are you doing now?" He said, "Well, I always put my socks on before I put my shoes on." And Big Milam told him, "Where you're going, you're not going to need shoes or socks." And which was certainly a threat. Well, they took him from the house. They drove him to another half-brother's farm, a barn in Glendora, Mississippi. And as God would have it, there was another black youngster on his way to his grandmother's friend's house to get a cup of sugar, a cup of flour, a cup of something. And she told him to go to the pump and find out who they were beating in the barn. She could hear the screams. She could actually hear the blows. But so he went to the pump. But he had the nerve, and God knows we haven't worked this out yet. What made him so nervy until he went to the barn and he peeked through the cracks in the barn structure, and he saw what they were doing in there, and they never observed him. When they took, I think it was Big Milam who took the hatchet and came down over Bo's head and separated the facial part from the back part. And then he had the nerve to take his gun and shoot him through the temple area. And I know he was dead by then. I know he was. Even before he took the axe, the hatchet, I'm sure he had died from the severe beating they had given him. And all of their beating was concentrated around the head. The rest of his body was literally unscarred. But they did a workout on his head. Have you seen the Jet magazine photo? You have. Well, if you notice that photo, you will see where you can see where the Undertaker sewed him back together. Yeah, but you have to know that he was separated to know to really assess the significance of those stitches. They had dug the left eye out. It looked as if they'd taken a nut picker and picked the left eye out. The right eye was about midway his cheek. His nose looked like they had taken a meat chopper and just chopped along the bridge of the nose. Where they tied that gin fan around his neck with the barbed wire. The weight of it had choked his tongue out. And when the body was discovered, the sheriff immediately sent for Moses Wright. He knew who they had found. And Moses Wright was only able to identify Emmett by the ring on his finger, the L.T., Louis Till, that was his dad.
I wanted the world to see what they did to my baby, Mammy Till. Emmett's body was returned to Chicago, where his mother, Mammy Till, identified his body. When she saw the body, Emmett's face was unrecognizable and badly mutilated. She described it as being split in 3 parts. The corpse was badly bloated. She decided to have an open casket to show the world what had happened to her son in Mississippi. Thousands attended his funeral, which was profiled by Jet magazine. This is what they did to Emmett Till in Money, Mississippi, all because he supposedly flirted with a white woman. September 19, 1955, Bryant and Millam go on trial for the kidnapping and murder of Emmett Till. The 2 plead not guilty, yet it was testified by the sheriff that Millam freely admitted to kidnapping Till. The verdict declared the 2 murders not guilty. In 1985, Bryant admitted to killing Till. In 2017, a book entitled The Blood of Emmett Till by Tim Tyson revealed that Carolyn Bryant recanted her statement.